Puikus laikas užduoti klausimus žmonėms,
So
kurie.
it's a perfect time now to ask questions to people who we listened to Mr. Olakas and Lady Melnikina. So I hope you have questions. Like, is Mr. Olak with us? Can you hear us, Mr. Olakas? I'm always ready. I'm always ready. I'm from the time when we had to be ready for everything. So a couple of questions from your beautiful presentation. You've mentioned that in some countries they have a different regulation, different cost structure, and Ukraine is one of those countries. And the Polish farmers started boycotting their produce. There is this sentiment that we should protect our markets. So, do you think that the European Union can allow access of Ukraine's farmers into our market, just like they are with the current cost structure they have? Allowing entry to the market to Ukraine has two aspects that need to be considered. One, that is support to Ukraine, and the second factor is compliance with the European standards. When we were joining the EU, when other countries were joining the EU, every country had to adopt these European standards and comply with them. So today we are sacrificing ourselves and we're helping people who are dying for their country, for their own freedom and our freedom. And when peace finally comes, then Ukrainian farmers will have to adopt the European Union standards. Our resilience, our competitiveness, and our other two things we need to consider. Yes, farming conditions in Ukraine differ, and our conditions differ. So yes, we need to find balance. And Rasa Melnikina already mentioned that we should focus locally. We should be consuming probably foods that were produced locally, closer to the consumer. But the consumer wants to have a quality product that at a cheaper price. So there's also this need to find the balance between demand and supply. But I am convinced, I believe that the European Union farmers and Lithuanian farmers can accept Ukrainian farmers into their own community and they can definitely survive. Because in addition, apart from competition, you also will have access to a huge market. So if we continue farming and we continue being entrepreneurship and for 30% of farms, for example, here in Lithuania, Ukrainian market will be a huge opportunity to export their produce. Another question. We're reducing the use of plant protection products. We're looking for alternatives to pesticides. We're looking for ways to make produce healthier, more sustainable, environmentally friendly. But organic farming is shrinking based on the latest statistical indicators. Why is it happening? There are several things to consider again when it comes to organic farming. Organic farming was a lot more attractive, in particular to large organic farms that were able to adapt to the current conditions. On the other hand, with, with the passage of time, there were other opportunities, and big farms, big farms are very responsive to the changes, to innovations. And Rasa already mentioned that big farms are quick to adopt managerial processes, managerial standards, and they move towards more profitability. And probably that's why they're moving away from organic farming. And then there's another thing to consider: consumers and the demand for organic produce from consumers. And consumers' willingness to consume certain foods. And I do see conflicting approaches in among the general population. Some say that they cannot afford healthier foods, but I also see cases when people who say this smoke very expensive cigarettes. So we're talking about consumer priorities here. So do we prioritize our health, or do we really don't have any money, or do we spend money on our bad habits? So I think that we need to grow our own consumer willing to consume Lithuanian honey, honey produced by Lithuanian beekeepers, rather than honey imported from China, for example. I always thought that we have the policy, that we have the political will, but we need additional decisions. Maybe in addition to, let's say, European support, Lithuanian government could offer some support for our farmers, maybe from the European Recovery Fund. I think that part of that funding could have been channeled to support organic farms. And then the last question, briefly, to Mr. Olekas, and then we'll move to Rasa. So you mentioned plant protein strategy. So are we talking about the fact that European Union is finally opening up its doors to genetically modified products?
I believe that we created a certain monster. As a doctor, I may say that all of us are genetically modified. If we look at our ancient times, we have been modified a lot. But naturally. And these modifications are different. Some of them are the mutations of our cells that lead to cancer. So we can do something about it and just observe, or we can provide the scientific basis for it and treat people. If you have a toothache, we naturally would have to take a stone and break it. So we should see the difference between the things that are really dangerous and between the things that are scientifically substantiated. According to the European Commission, new genetic technologies where no other additional genes are used. And these genetic modifications naturally take place as well. They should be allowed. I believe that they should be substantiated by the science. So I would invite you once again to participate in the Conference of Lithuanian Scientists. And we should not intimidate people that genetically modified organisms are monsters. We have to build on the scientific progress and employ it for the sake of our health and food safety, and we should not demonize science. As a surgeon, I can say an important 18th century surgeon, Willard Norman, said, "Who touches the heart? The one who touches the heart should not be a surgeon." Now, people's lives are saved and cardiovascular surgery is carried out.
Ačiū. Pone
Thank
Rasa,
you.
skaitau klausimą.
Ms. Rasa, question to you.
Mylite skaičius?
You love
Dėl
figures.
ūkininkavimo. Ar teisingai suprantu, kad
In terms of
ekologiniai
organic
ūkiai
farming,
turėjo
do I
dideles
understand you
finansines
correctly
paskatas,
that
o
organic
jeigu
farming
sumažės
survived
ekologiško
because it
ūkininkavimo?
received financial
Viso
incentives, and
karo
when
metu.
they finished, they had no chance to continue organic farming? I should say that the demand is shrinking because when the prices went up, I mean, when the prices of energy went up, so the demand for organic farming products, organically farmed products reduced. My colleague defended a PhD thesis and performed a survey, and the survey showed that the majority of organic farmers can redirect their activities if financial incentives reduce. In terms of the motives, are we still an agrarian country? Yes, we are an agrarian country. Yet, as a developed country, we have the structure of employmental value added, which is typical of developed countries. So 20% of people work in industry, around 70% work in services, and the rest is employed in agriculture. So a similar structure is typical of England, the Netherlands, and it's no surprise. So greater employment in agriculture in Lithuania is higher, and our transition into the market economy took place under different conditions than in Western countries. There were a lot of people who wanted to relate themselves to agriculture. When they retire, they are engaged in agriculture, but this type of employment is larger, but it is reducing depending on the number of people who would stop working in agriculture as an additional activity. Last year, agriculture exceeded technologies in terms of their share in the GDP. A very good question. It is linked to value added. Medicine creates a greater value added than agriculture, but we do not eat medicine. And I like saying that agriculture creates a very low value added. But when we produce sausages from meat, it's not as healthy as natural meat. We eat these processed products, which should be eaten just very rarely and not every day. We run to the pharmacy to buy supplements, which has a greater value added. And these supplements don't work, and maybe they shouldn't. Then we run to the pharmacy to buy medicine, which has an even greater value added. And I'm among those who are absolutely disagree with the statement that the Lithuanian agriculture has a very low value added, and I can prove it with my statistics, and I'm the patriot of Lithuanian agriculture. A question from the audience.
Sakykite trumpai, nes mūsų laikas baiginėjasi ir
Our
laukia
time is
koncerto.
nearly up, and
Dar ne,
we
tai dar galima, puiku.
will still have to listen to another presentation. Oh, we still have some time. Dear Rasa, could you tell me what should be done in order to develop cooperation between small and medium-sized farms? Maybe certain organizational structure should be established because the farmers, especially small farmers, are not inclined to cooperate. They would rather die than cooperate. 2 or 3 suggestions. Could you introduce yourself? I'm an advisor to Juozas Olekas. Cooperation is our hope that it will solve problems, but I believe that the preconditions that led to success of cooperation in the pre-war period are completely different now, and I'm very skeptical about cooperation among all the farmers. And before to the war, farmers cooperated because they couldn't choose other activities, because they were not simply present. After war, the processing industry had to be created to take food away to the cities. And these homogeneous farms cooperated because it was economically beneficial to them. We don't have this precondition now. We have enough of processing capabilities, and the farms can invest into their own farms. And if your activities fail, you can just withdraw from the farm rather than going bankrupt and engage in other activities, because agriculture correlates with other sectors such as industry or services, so there are no preconditions. But networking, which is also cooperation, is very successful in Lithuania. There are no contractual relations, but it's very successful. And I performed a study, and rural tourism has been created thanks to networking, and it's a very successful example. There are more examples like this, but they are not visible in our statistics. Cooperation is taking place, but its form has changed. Ms. Rasa, you said very nicely about the Western model. The farmers were not real farmers. They have a job, they have a plot of land. And how much do they earn from a hectare? I speak about small farms. How are they able to compete with larger farms? I feel your skepsis. I'm interested in figures. And why are you calculating the income per hectare? And why aren't you calculating income per hour? Or why don't you use other formulas? The farmers calculate, if I work for a month in my hectare, in my farm, and I receive 1,000 of additional income during my holidays, and I want to engage in these activities, that's excellent. My children help me. Maybe my neighbors help me. We think that we have to produce more food, and we are speaking about the shortage of food, but it's very difficult to sell the product because the competition is really fierce. And your question is interesting. And if it's beneficial for the person, that does not mean that the farm is not effective. And why the last, and if this person decides to leave this market, they will leave it. I am a supporter of diversity. We no longer have these Soviet farms. Some farms used to be merged. Then the party took a decision to split these farms. They were split. And now every farmer decides what's the most efficient for them because their resources are limited. So I should say that every farm matters. This is my slogan. It's important for rural areas and it's important for the consumer. Otherwise, these farms wouldn't
Ponia Rasa nepasisekė, dabar galėsiu jūs paklausinėti.
exist. Mrs. Marlene is still not present here, so we still have time for other questions.
Taip, vieną dar klausimą.
I have another question. I'm a mayor of Šakiai district. We are speaking about products, about surviving in rural areas, about farmers. But today, farmers don't understand why they have to turn their arable land into grassland, which they cultivated for 20 years. We're speaking about surviving today, and to survive today in line with the directives and with an aim for Lithuania to become a leading country, speaking about these drainage ditches, and only 7 countries, including in Lithuania, are leading in this area. I don't know why. So in terms of this survival, how to stop this bureaucratic work so that the farmers could work properly in order to create value added. Could you introduce it? Raimondas Januševičius, mayor of Šakiai district. I'm not going to answer this question because it is intended for politicians. Maybe Mr. Juozas could comment it. We can see Juozas here. Yes, I would comment it if I may. Thank you, dear Mayor, for the question. I suppose that there are 2 aspects here. Firstly, we need to adapt to certain changes that are taking place inevitably and that were not so much visible earlier. In my presentation, I spoke about these things, and these proposals are for a reason. We face certain challenges. Do you remember when Kretinga district had experienced such floods? And you should see how people live there now. The nature is undergoing changes, and we need measures and to implement these measures together. In my presentation, I mentioned that the proposals were different, and we have to strike the balance and to find the right measures and to acknowledge the mistakes we made in the past. And the fewer mistakes we make, the better. I don't really think that we should protect only our interests. Sometimes we have to make common effort. And sometimes the opinions of those who work in the agricultural committee and in other committees differ, and we attempt to find this correct common position, the right common position. I don't know what your position is about introducing scientific achievements. I don't know whether you would like scientists to help farmers, and instead of chemical pesticides, you could use new products, more resistant seeds that could lead to a better harvest. And these seeds would be the result of work of the Lithuanian scientists. So we have to find the consensus to adopt a common position in relation to different measures and their implementation. Ms. Madeleine Merkler has already joined us, so I would like to thank the panelists, and let's listen to the next presentation.